Good evening, YouTube. HeirofCarthage here, and welcome back to some more Total War Warhammer 2 online multiplayer. Just look at the scene here on this map. We bring you epicness in this game. Absolute epicness. This map is amazing, by the way, with like all the Skaven warpstone meteors and stuff coming down. Looks like one of the warp bombs or the doom sphere or whatever has gone off here. So absolutely awesome stuff. El Halcon is favoring us with another replay from his old World Olympics. This was the tournament that Halo hosted on my channel a few weeks back. It was fantastic. It was right after all the new content came out. These are still in the early rounds where he is playing as Bretonia on his way through, and Alberic de Bordelot is his pick here. Now Alberic receiving some buffs here, getting his trident, and that looks pretty sweet, him carrying a trident there. I like it. So Alberic, a cool pick. He's got nice anti-large capabilities, and let's look at just to make sure we remind ourselves of his capability. He's got this Braid of Bordelot here, so it gives 8 bonus versus large and 4 leadership to everything in range. That is pretty slick. Makes him a really good lord at taking down large units. Really like that. And then this one too, extra charge bonus and speed. Could be good for helping to support cavalry units as well. And man, that would even give knights versus errant and other units like that a bonus versus large. Very, very cool stuff for Alberic. Cool to see him having some capability. Let's take a look at the Bretonian army. We're going to have 4 foot squires. The front line, we've got a couple of peasant mob. There's another here in this secondary line. We're going to see a couple of men-at-arms with pole arms, some spearmen-at-arms on that flank, and then over here, the Beast Slayers of Bastogne, a foot squire with halberds. Very sweet unit here, capable of dealing some anti-large damage. And when we take a look at the very back line, there is a peasant bowman with pox arrows on both flanks. A questing knight, so this is an armor-piercing melee focus. And then the companion of Kinel, also armor-piercing melee focus. Some more peasant mob, along with a damsel of life, and she is rocking earth blood. And then over here on this flank, more questing knights, and then the fleur-de-lis. So much anti-armor capability here from Bretonia between the infantry and the questing knights. And why would they bring that armor? Well, they're playing the lizardmen, and the lizardmen have some nasty dinosaurs, and they're probably trying to prepare for that. So we got the Poha Sentinels here, the Pterodon Riders, poisonous, flying, nice skirmisher cavalry to be annoying. More Pterodon Riders. These guys are going to be great at helping to control Alberic in the air, potentially. There are a couple of Bastillodons with Solar Engine, giving the Lizardmen some very nice range capability and ways to damage all that cavalry and Alberic from range. The front line is Temple Guards. So the Lizardmen basically daring the Bretonians here to challenge their infantry. I don't know how foot squires will trade against these guys. I haven't tested it yet. They may trade well because of their armor piercing. They may not. These are some pretty seriously tough units, and then behind them are some Saurus warriors. So not a lot of real mobile units for Bretonia, but you know, they're basically trying to bet that Bretonia can't overcome all of the very superior infantry that they have here. And as far as their leadership, we have a Skink Priest, Lore of Heavens with Curse of the Midnight Wind. That can also help ensure that. And then there's a Red Crested Skink Chief, anti-large, anti-armor, poison. And he's on foot, which means that anything that wants to come get him has to contend with all this other stuff on the ground for the Lizardmen. So an interesting army from the Lizardmen. Not the salamander, chameleon, skink kind of skirmishy stuff that sometimes people might be expecting these days from the Lizards. And we're just going to watch and see how all this plays out. And this player over here, sorry, I forgot to mention, this is Willamos of the Sacred Band Clan, and then again El Halcon of XMT. I have not seen Willamos play before, so excited to see this. And of course I have seen El Halcon because of the tournament stuff that you've seen before here. The Pterodon Riders keeping a respectful distance here, and they should. They want to stay away from these pox bowmen. They don't want anything to do with that. And as long as Alberic kind of hangs out in the protective sphere of those pox bowmen, it will help control what the Pterodon Riders are able to do to him. But there's a lot of stuff on the ground down here that could really be nasty for Alberic if he's not careful. Ooh, what a shot here from the Bastillodon. A little bit of poison javelins in there too to slow him down. But undeterred, Alberic's going to come in and try and assert his dominance here, and this Bastillodon needs some support. Fortunately, it's nearby in the form of these Saurus spearmen. Alberic, yeah, getting a little bit of damage done early, but nothing too severe. They're really high armor on that Bastillodon. He's going to take another pot shot right in his butt as he flies off, and we have the Pterodon Riders coming in to escort him out of town. This is a lot of cavalry for all these Saurus warriors to deal with. Yeah, this is a tough call. peasant mob being used as just kind of an initial, wow, another solid hit from the solar engine. So some spectacular work so far from the solar engine. Bretonnia's going to have a numbers game here for sure. You can already see the moves to surround here, though the defenders of the Fleur de Ris taking some nasty shots up that solar engine. Those things are very, very good when they get hits, and it is getting some solid hits right now. Its men-at-arms are going to be controlled. A wind blast here, doing a little damage to the foot squires, nothing too crazy. Alberic coming down once again. He's got some pole arms to help him. That Bastiladon needs to pull back. The Pterodon Riders taking a lot of fire from those peasant bowmen, and there is just cavalry all over the lizardmen at this point. And this nasty rear charge here from the questing knights does tremendous damage to the temple guards, and that is helping these foot squires trade quite nicely right now, though the Legion of Chakwa just absolutely puts down. And remember that they provide missile resistance to nearby units, so that Bastiladon and the other units around will be very resistant to those bowmen. Another nice questing knights charging in here. The companions of Kinel trying to get in here and cause a lot of damage. These Star Chamber guards, though, are going to turn around, but I mean, they've got to deal with all this armor-piercing infantry behind them. And the Pterodon Riders are being pushed back rather successfully. If they go after the bowmen, they're going to have to contend with these Beast Slayers of Baston. So the Lizardmen are feeling the numbers of Bretonnia right now, and Bretonnia is doing a pretty good job here. Though the Legion of Chakwa is getting into those units back here. This Bastiladon with solar engines in serious trouble. Alberic has it pinned in a whole bunch of pole arms, and there's just really nothing that can be done by the Lizardmen to support. It can try to run, but Alberic's going to catch it, and he will defeat it. This is a specialty for him, taking down these big monsters like this. So the Bastiladon is going to be put out, and despite the very superior infantry of the Lizardmen, they're struggling with the fact that all these knights can just cause so much damage on the charge. And then their solar engines, which are a key component of their army, are being challenged here big time. But as this fight draws on, look at the Bretonnians here struggling with this infantry. Doesn't mean they're going to lose, but they are struggling with it. The Lizardmen infantry, for the most part, is some very, very tough stuff. These Pterodon Riders might want to go take a shot at those peasant bowmen now that they have a chance, but one of them's already basically routing back here. The Legion of Chakwa needs to get back in the fight. You can see this Bastiladon attempting to separate itself from the fight so it can try and fire in and do some good. The Skink Chief is got some escort here, but his Saurus warriors are wavering. He needs to re-engage the Star Chamber Guardians and these Saurus warriors and just continue to push the Bretonnians. Taking down Alberic at this point is going to be very, very difficult because of the weak state of most of the anti-large infantry. And there's so much cavalry floating around that really the Bretonnian just kind of needs to wear out the Lizardmen infantry, and then just let the cavalry and Alberic finish the job. There's not a whole lot the Lizardmen can do about that at this point because of what's left. It's an interesting thought what the Lizardmen did here, but I almost think maybe a bit too hard on the Temple Guard. They would be good against cavalry, but you got to remember those charges, and if your Temple Guard can't brace for that charge, they're still going to take tremendous damage, especially to a unit like Questing Knights that's dealing so much armor-piercing damage on the charge. Huge amounts of armor-piercing. And then Alberic, a great dinosaur hunter here. Really a spectacular pick for this. Though the poison is significant there. Look what it does to his weapon damage. And this Red Crested Skink's going to get out of here. He's actually going to be a pretty decent unit to fight Alberic if Alberic can stay down here on the ground where he can get at him. There's infantry coming, though. That's going to interrupt the Red Crested Skink a bit. But look at the damage he's getting done. Impressive work by the little skink. And despite the effort over here, the Skink Priest and the Temple Guards could not hold out against such huge numbers of Bretonnian infantry. They may not be the best thing ever, but these Beast Slayers and the other halberds have decent melee defense, and they do some armor piercing, and so they're not going to be a very cost-effective trade with the Temple Guards, who really need to be fighting in an anti-large battle and not so much an infantry capacity. I've never really seen too many situations. There are situations, but I haven't seen too many situations where I think that the Temple Guard trade well as infantry. And like I said, there are, but I think they're rarer. And with Bretonnia having access to cheap foot squires, I just don't think that they're going to end up trading that well. And interesting matchup between these two factions. I think I would have liked to have seen a pick of some Cold One Spear Riders from the Lizardmen. I think they would be an excellent way to counter cavalry from Bretonnia, because they trade quite nicely for their price. And then maybe a focus with some more Saurus Warriors, less Temple Guard. And the Saurus Warriors, I think, trade better with the Foot Squires. And if the cavalry of Bretonnia is busied by your own cavalry, then that means the Foot Squires have to alone try to contend with some of your Saurus Warriors. I do like the pick of the Red Crested Skink Chief. Fun new unit. Definitely has capabilities versus Bretonnia. Look at this here. We're going to get the Pterodon Riders to try and tie down Alberic. They won't cause a lot of damage, unfortunately, though, for the Lizardmen. Very nicely, of course, for... Yeah, look at that. He cleared through those pretty quickly. The Lizardmen are going to lose their leadership here, and Al-Halcon is going to pull his way through another round with his armies of chivalrous knights of Bretonnia. For the lady. For the lady. So Halcon picking up another impressive win. Willamos, great game though from Willamos. It was fun to see. An interesting pick. I mean, look at the Star Chamber Guardian. Such a unit here. 149 kills. This is a tough, tough unit. And definitely, I think, a solid pick for this battle. I'm just wondering whether you really wanted this many more of these. Solar Engines are a unit I like a lot. But in this case, he just had a difficulty protecting them. And again, I'm almost thinking maybe that's where the Cold One Spear, or the Cold One Spear Riders come in with these Temple Guards. I'll go look at the price out of curiosity. The Pterodon Riders are an interesting one. They could sit under the protective fire of the Bastiladons and maybe help keep flying units away. I'm not sure I love the pick of the Pterodon Riders, but again, maybe they are a good pick. You know, I don't play a lot of Lizardmen yet, so not necessarily something I would really know, but I do like the infantry pick for Bretonnia here. All of this anti-armor is always a good deal, and then having about half of it be anti-large is a really smart pick, and then having some buffer here with the peasant mob to try and slow down dino charges or Saurus charges or anything else, a nice way to help your Foot Squires last longer, and a solid pick by Al-Halcon. I want to go over here and just do a bit of tinkering and with that Lizardmen, the idea of that build. So let's hop in here with Lizardmen and let's grab ourselves a Red Crested Skink Chief. Relatively cheap unit, and if you look at the different capabilities, I mean, having it on a horned one may not be bad, either to be able to get around the battlefield, but, you know, it is what it is. This is roughly probably what he had with the Red Crested Skink Chief. He had that Skink Priest, Lord of Heavens, and it was being used to bring Curse of the Midnight Wind, I believe. I don't know what else it had. It could have been very cheap like that. And then I know that he had the Star Chamber Guardians. All right, 1,200 each for these Temple Guard. Pretty expensive. I know there was a couple of Saurus with spears with shields, and I think a couple of Saurus warriors. We had the 2 Bastiladons with solar engines, and we had the... I'll grab the flyers here in a minute. Here's the Poha Sentinels, this other one, and then we had 2 solar engines. Archisotech, where did it... Oh, right here. So this is roughly his army here. I know there's 357 left over. I definitely don't think you need the Bastiladons, and I would probably cut these guys as well. I think the Star Chamber Guardians become a nice backline pick to help fend off cavalry, potentially, and help support other units. And I about half wonder, and obviously it's easy to counter pick after you see a battle. I'm just thinking this through. I know it's not easy for him to know because he doesn't always know what his opponent's going to pick with Bretonnia, but I definitely don't mind some Saurus Spears and some Saurus Warriors. I think that the Bastiladons can be quite helpful. But like I said, I think the Cold One Riders, probably the Cold One Spear Riders, a little bit better here because of their dedicated anti-large. I mean, you throw 3 of those guys in, and all of a sudden Bretonnia's going to have some work cut out for him in terms of dealing with infantry. And then I wonder if you come up here and maybe throw in some Red Crested Skinks, or maybe you just go Skink cohorts, because Bretonnia's infantry is kind of crap. To be honest, they're not great. So if these guys are helping contend with the flanks, now you would lose. But I don't know. Maybe Red Crested Skinks, if you do a little bit of cost control, you might be able to get a second one in there. And now, I mean, it's going to be a lot harder for that Bretonnian cavalry to get work done with 3 of these Cold One Spear Riders rolling around. That would be a little bit of extra money. You know, like I said, I just have to tinker around a little bit and see what these see what these different abilities and other stuff could buy you in terms of how you want to play this one out to get everything to fit because of the cost. But yeah, I mean, I think that potentially you start to put a lot more challenge up to that Bretonnian cavalry, and then it makes it harder for them to win. The foot squires, I would think they do okay-ish versus the Saras, but I mean, the Saras have a lot of weapon strength, and there's a little bit of armor piercing in there, and the foot squires don't have huge armor to begin with. But again, you could always get something cheaper like these skink cohorts and start throwing some of those in. I don't know. Like I said, I would have to do some thinking through it, see how you potentially want it to go. This cold one with the skink priest gets him around and challenges Alberic de Bordelot a lot better rather than him just being on foot. Do you want to keep both solar engines? Maybe, maybe not. But like I said, it's always easy to piecemeal someone's build afterwards. It's a lot harder to play these, and I give a lot of kudos to the Lizardman player there at Willamos. I think it was a fun game. It was an interesting army. You got to try stuff. You always got to try stuff, and I think it's neat to see that Lizardman infantry build with the minimal dino support, because I think a lot of people were probably expecting a lot of salamander skirmishing and chameleon skink skirmishing. So interesting build nonetheless. Hope you all enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out. Thanks to both players for some entertaining battles, and I will see you all soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 online battles.